You're listening to IRN, the Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
Welcome to Center of Light Radio with spiritual teacher, intuitive, musician, composer, and best-selling author of The Divine Principle, Anchoring Heaven on Earth, your host, Keith Anthony Blanchard.
Center of Light Radio, Center of Divine Unfoldment and Reinforcement. Strap in all ye spiritual astronauts as we launch for inner space. Welcome to the program, each and every one of you. I am appreciative. I am grateful that you are here. Recap of some past announcements. Swamiji Viswayogi, God Realized Man, is going to be here August 17th. Actually, we're going to be doing a live video feed. I think it's, since I'm new to Inception Radio, I think it's going to take place in the video lounge kind of thing. Need to get with my producer, Joe. Fantastic guy. He always does me right. About some of the electronic technical particulars, but we're working on making that happen. So you can experience the full power and light of this divine holy man from India, Swamiji Viswayogi. Still have not heard back from my human hybrid alien friend, Nucleus 8. I'm sure I will. He's a character. You'd have to know him to know how he operates and does things, but I'm looking forward to get confirmation from him that he will come on the show. And my guess is that we probably will not do a live broadcast because we don't want those people targeting him out, finding out where he is, because he's had these kinds of episodes before where he was found and there was attempts made towards his well-being. So we're going to keep everything groovy and everything safe for Mr. Nucleus 8 if he decides he is able to leave his planetary station 35 plus whatever thousand light years away. Keep in mind, he does this all in a matter of a thought. And he pops into Star One, the human lady who he works through. It's pretty amazing. But we're going to be hopefully send out some prayers that Nucleus says, yes, he's going to chime in on Center of Light Radio. Make sure you visit Center of Light Radio website. You do that by going to centeroflightradio.com. Lots of really, really cool stuff there. In fact, today I posted some services that I will be providing. I do public speaking, have been doing public speaking for years, everything from spiritual topics to divine incarnations to aliens to, oh gosh, how to empower you so you can live your best life, to be able to live your passion, live your dreams on this planet and be successful, whatever that means to you, whatever that word success means to you. Some of the other services I will be providing would be spiritual readings, life coaching, removal of dark entities. Ooh, that stuff that sometimes finds its way into people's homes and makes their life just a living hell. And this show here, we are all about light. So if you know anybody who needs help with removal of such energies from their home, I would be more than happy to help. Also, you can jump seat from Center of Light Radio, go to keithanthonyblanchard.com. There you can find all of my books, everything I'm about, both those sites. But most importantly, check out the Anchoring Heaven on Earth audio meditation, the free, let me emphasize that word, free Anchoring Heaven on Earth audio meditation. It'll help you find that space within yourself so you can make your life effortless, so you can make your life easier. And we all can use some of that, that's for sure. Also, feel free to check out Do What You Love, A Path to Passionate Living, spiritual documentary made about my life from Blue Cast Productions, telling you that you can live your passion, as I said just before. Check all that cool, groovy stuff out. Also, at centeroflightradio.com, you can find the archives to all my past shows. To call into the show today to speak to myself or my guest, you can dial 888-919-2355. That's 888-919-2355. Remember, if you're not at home by your computer and you want to hear your favorite show, you can go to the App Store on your phone and download the Inception Radio Network app for free. In so doing, you will have everything at your fingertips. Chat room, listen, live links, news, podcasts, much more. Remember, there are many ways to connect to Center of Light Radio and Inception Radio for sure. Now it's time to get down to Center of Light Radio business. I've always wanted to talk like that on the air. I don't know why. Today, my guest is going to be a dear friend of mine, very, very powerful speaker. I'm not kidding you. Put on your seatbelt. He's going to take you for a ride. Today's topic is going to be hidden keys to peak power. My guest today is Steve Lancaster. Steve Lancaster is a spiritual seeker, teacher, and pastor, founder of the former Happy Church of Memphis, Tennessee, an organization locally renowned for its vibrant energy, compassionate empathy, and bold originality. Steve evolved to explore a broader path of spiritual expression and interest. He doesn't have one of these big, long bios. He just gets right to the point. Welcome to Center of Light, my friend, my brother, Mr. Steve Lancaster.
Keith, thank you so much. What a pleasure to share with others, to learn from others, how to fulfill our potential, how to find more. Someone said, if you think there's must be more, then there must be more. And I've been seeing a lot of your posts about powering up. And that has been speaking to me, and that has been resonating with me. And I love one thing you posted, Keith. You said, I'm very happy, but not as happy as I am going to be. That's profound. Keith, this is a school you never graduate from. You never get a certificate because you keep learning on tapping that which is infinite within us. It is infinite. Therefore, there is no end of the knowing. There is no parameters that we can fully define. However, we can come to understand some terms, some simple ways in which to tap in. And the ancient Christian mystics said, out of your belly will flow rivers of living water. I like that. I like that. I want that. And I want to experience that and be a part of that energy in this age of awakening.
Absolutely. For the listening audience, how I come to know Steve Lancaster. Steve, you were about 11 years old when you began to use the word preach, scripture, recite scripture like it was
I was actually 5 years old, and there may be someone listening that it was in their front yard that I felt an impulse to begin to just cry aloud, the old John the Baptist thing. And the mother stood at the door and was like, what the heck, And I just tried it on as a kid in somebody's front yard, and it felt pretty good. And somehow the minister of the Baptist church I was attending, he got wind of it. And he said, well, we'll put the kid up there for 5 minutes on Wednesday night. This'll be fun. And, 50 minutes later, they were pulling me down. So, we may be in trouble. But anyway, I think there's it's something that was ingrained in me from birth, and it may have past life connections, and I know that may be problematic for some, but I think we discover that on the journey. And so, it's fun. I love to speak, but I also love to listen. I love to teach. I love to learn. because it's only out of the abundance of the heart that the mouth speaks, is what the master said. So if the heart is empty, there's really not much to say. So that's why we have to, explore our power practices. We've got to be still. We have to meditate. We have to connect. We have to listen to what the divine is saying to us in our own voice and in the voice of other people, in the voice of experience that's going on around us, in the voice of children, in the voice of nature, in the voice of laughter, in the voice of play, in the voice of work. The divine's always speaking. And so our hearts have a capacity to contain incredible amounts of information. And to me, information is energy, and it's all vibration. And when we store and absorb that, I think, Keith, you and I were discussing this the other night at your music performance. Every person is a power person. Every person is a power person. Now, we are all at different degrees of learning to access that, different degrees of awareness of that. But Keith, we all have incredible potential, and that's the exciting thing about this study and this topic.
Yes. See, I was about to say how I come to meet you. I was doing some rock show here in Memphis, and I was about to go on break, and I saw this dashing young man sitting there, and he did not look like anybody else in the room. Honestly, he looked different, and I mean that energetically. There was a different signature to this cat. And I get off the stage, and I just felt myself walking towards this table and just sat there and just introduced myself, and we just became immediately connected in such a multi-dimensional layer in a matter of a moment. Would you agree with that, Steve? That's how it happened for you?
Absolutely, Keith. And it's something that has just never gone away. We call each other at spontaneous times and late hours of the night and talk and share and share some of the strange experiences and just to share a joke. It's been a wonderful experience knowing you, and I appreciate that friendship and that connection, because as one of my points, embrace your power people. Keith, I know that you're a power person in my life that is imparted a lot just by hanging out. So
yeah, Steve, let's jump right into the topic here about finding the hidden keys to peak power. You named some bullet points on these particular variables. One would be embracing power people in your life. Can you expound upon that a little more, please?
Yeah, you can tell I'm a preacher, Keith. Everything kind of goes to embrace your power people and explore your power practices and experience power predeterminations. And I'm really excited to talk about that one. Yeah, we have people. We all know it's not rocket science to figure out who turns you up and who turns you down. Now, that is not to disparage on any human being. Every person is a power person, but not every person has accessed and awakened to that.
Dude, stop right there. That is very, very well said. That is really, really cool. Everybody has infinite potential. Everybody has infinite power. And like you said, it's not to downplay anyone. It's just that many people are just not utilizing that which they have, after doing a significant amount of work. Very well done.
Absolutely, Keith. So we need mentors in this path. We need people who can accelerate us. We need people. This has always been the way, the master and the student. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I think when we come to the humble recognition, Keith, that maybe we don't have enough awareness of power in our life. It's there. Oh, hey, it's there. but we don't have the awareness. We're not experiencing the joy, the strength, the vitality of that. We need help. And I think when there's a readiness and a humility in us, Keith, people will start walking into our lives. I mean, the universe shows up. And one thing I'll say, how do you identify that? Well, how can you tell when your gas is empty? The gauge tells you. The car starts and we all do that. We have the same symptoms. I have a saying in one of my walk cards: keep a pulse on your spiritual vitality, move towards what enlivens you and away from what deadens you. And, that's not rocket science, Keith. There are certain places you may go and you feel life draining out of you. Now, I'll be honest, life does not give you the luxury of just having wonderful, empowering people around you all the time. At least that hasn't been my experience. And many of the listeners, you work with some people that are at a toxic level. That doesn't mean they're a toxic person. It means they're at a toxic level and not understanding how to eliminate the darkness from their verbiage, from their thoughts, and therefore they make things toxic for you. I wish, life gave us a perfect aquarium to swim in. But Keith, fish aren't made in pure water. We have to know that there's vitality and opportunity even around people that may seem somewhat toxic, although that's not their true identity. We have to learn to radiate. I mean, Keith, if this just works in a perfect environment, I wouldn't say it's all that good of stuff, because, you check the newspaper and it's just not all peaches and cream out there. And it's not all darkness and crap either, But there are challenges in human relationships, in families, in a long distance marital or love relationship. There's challenges. We all know that. But, we can still grab that power, that energy that's available. I loved one session where, the disciples, man, they were wanting a burger really badly. And they asked, Jesus, aren't you hungry? Aren't you ready to eat? And he says, I have a meat or bread that you know not of. Keith, that's what I want to know about, okay? I want to know, there was a statement, I believe, made by Paul that in him we live and move and have our being. By the divine, all things consist. And I want that awareness. I believe it's Alan Cohen that says God is a frequency. Stay tuned, and it's, our little heads and hearts are sort of like radio dials, aren't they, Keith? I mean,
Yes.
the signal's there. There's no problem with the signal. And there's really no problem with our receiver, Keith. We're just not tuned in. We're tuning in to the distracting noise. Someone has said something that pissed us off. We're tuning into that.
There's a lot of people they're so preoccupied with the blues, they don't ever take the time to listen to soul music. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, Steve, how do we begin to recognize power people? Other than, is it just the fact that you feel better being around them? And also recognizing, like you said, they have a different bread and a different meat as to why they are power people. They have something for you. And like you said, I absolutely agree with that. It's not rocket science. And I don't think it even requires spiritual work just to ask yourself, is it beneficial for me to be around this person? The answer should surface literally immediately.
Yeah. That is exactly true, Keith. And it just... excuse me. It's, you remember the movie The Shining, where the little boy comes through the line and the old gentleman says, he sort of intuitively picks up the boy's in for a dark ride. And he says, You're going to be all right. You got the shine. Hey, Hey, man,
Yes.
we're going to be okay because we got the shine. And someone's listening, and man, there's this crazy stuff going on around you. Hey, you're going to be okay. You've got the shine. The master said if your eye is single, your whole body will be full of light. But the discipline of keeping that eye single, Keith, is it sort of requires that we explore some power practices,
Yeah, I was going to go right into that about exploring your power practices. What would be, lay out some examples, if you would, Steve, of a power practice?
Well, Keith, just for example, and this is real simple. It doesn't require any great skill because, believe me, I'm learning. But I call it my I am walk, IAM.
Oh, that's sweet.
Intentional, affirmative, meditational walk. And all I get some cards, business cards, because they fit real easy in the palm. You can buy these little Avery packets, and you can print them up on your computer or hand write. The sayings, you can pull stuff off Facebook, Keith, things you hear along the way. And, Keith, I believe there's a vibration to words. I believe there's a real magic and an energy. And when we hear a certain word that we need, Keith, you ever have it go off in you like a firecracker, man? Have you ever just...
I can't shut it off, Steve.
Oh, man. When somebody and the wisdom and someone is a real word crafter and they say something that just breaks an inner logic. Wallace Wattles, he kind of does that to me about wealth and prosperity. It's something that I'm still challenged with. But, I keep listening to masters. I do this walk. I go about 2 miles, sometimes 3 miles, slow to medium pace, put on some clothes I feel comfortable in. Early morning is better this time of year, than when it gets too hot and humid, unless some days I just want to sweat and detox. And get out there and look at these sayings. Let these words, words are spirit and life. This is what the masters told us. And we just mentioned they're a vibration, they're an energy. I mean, people in the realms of magic know that you can write words on houses, on walls, and it has a lasting energy, Keith. It can raise vibration.
Well, if we go back to primordial, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. I mean, Word, it seems like Word is not only just a sound, it's the foundation of bringing everything into manifestation, power of the spoken word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Yeah, absolutely. There are definitely some vibrational powers inherent in spoken word. Absolutely.
You've seen Dr. Emoto's work, I know, Keith, and
Absolutely.
When he put labels on the water, Jesus, man, the waters take different shape, the molecules take different structure, and you put a negative label on some water and it malforms the water. You put a positive label on the water and it causes the symmetrical forms, these artistic layouts to begin to display. Is that fascinating? Hey, so you want energy? You want to be a beautiful soul? You want to be a beautiful person? Hey, lose life's labels and choose the divine labels that have been given to you. You are made in the image of God. You are spirit and life. In you dwells the fullness of love. You are filled with the fruits and the gifts of the Spirit. And Keith, when we begin to put those kind of labels, and there's maybe someone listening, you had some toxic parenting and all sorts of things were projected on you. And I just believe you're really going to get hold of this today and shed some of those labels. You don't have to be a victim unless you choose to be. And you can choose to be a victor, not a victim. And I know you're choosing that right now. And I'm
very cool. Victor instead of victim. Victor instead of victim.
Exactly.
That's going to resound with me for the next couple of weeks. That's for sure. Steve, we're at the bottom of the hour. Would you give out any sort of contact that our listening audience is able to find you if they want to chime in and say hi, befriend you, or get some of your powerful spiritual guidance?
Hey, Keith, I'm a very simple guy, and I have not excelled to write a book and to have multiple websites and all of those good things, but I do have a Facebook. Hello.
There you go.
And so,
There
Steve
you go.
Lancaster in Olive Branch, Mississippi, and I'll friend you and keep you unless you just start saying really ugly things about me, and then I'll turn you over to Keith's Facebook page, and you can friend him then. So, but now, and they can contact me there, Keith. They can contact me by phone, although I must say I'm not that attentive to my phone. But you can take a chance, roll the dice at 662-671-2086. And I would love to talk to you, and I would especially love to talk to anyone that has come out of some rigid religious abuse. You need to talk to me, and we'll share some things that will help you at a very personal level and something that I've explored. And then also, if you want to catch me in person, there's this guy with really long golden hair you'll see at Keith's music gigs. I'm one of his groups. So, if you can't find me anywhere else, there's a high likelihood that I'll be there with Grand Theft Audio or Keith on acoustic guitar. So, yeah, Keith, love to talk to anyone, or they can, of course, email me at stv.lancaster, Lancaster, at yahoo.com. And once again, I think I've got about 50,000 unread emails, but you will not be one of them. I promise that.
Steve, Profundity from the chat room posted your link to your Facebook. So listening audience, if you can, those in the chat room, check Steve out. He is the real deal. It's very much the reason why he and I connect. He's the guy next door, just like me. I do strongly suggest, if you do the social media thing, that you follow Steve on Facebook. He has, he came from a preaching background, a Christian background. He knows the Bible in and out. He knows the real juicy morsels in it, how to interpret it, how to implement it in your life so that you can expand versus the alternative. But Steve is the real deal, and he's always about bringing people up, bringing people up, bringing people up.
Keith,
and he's a fantastic songwriter on top of that, which I recently, after knowing him all these years, just come to discover. What were you going to say, brother?
I'm doing something else new, Keith. And this kind of goes with what we're talking about, exploring power practices. I did a drum circle. I did it, let's see, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then I did another one yesterday. And Keith, I'll tell you something funny. We were out there under the trees in a midtown, lovely setting, really great people. They were very casual and laid back, yet at the same time, you could tell they held this as a sacred space. You know what I mean? We told jokes, we were casual, but you could tell that the people in that circle, they had showed up to do spiritual business. And we were all playing different types of drums and rattles and shakes, and from different backgrounds. We banged for 2.5 hours, and it was mid-afternoon, and Mid-South weather, things were getting a little muggy, and I was actually getting a little drained. And when I left there, I thought, well, it was kind of fun at first, but I don't know really if there was anything that I experienced. I can't. Keith, I woke up this morning and things had shifted in me. There was a shift in me. There was a more positive demeanor. There was a more confident stance in my personal life. Keith, that's just from a freaking drum circle,
Yeah, right.
I love the scripture that says God has chosen the weak things to confound the wise, to foolish things, to bring to nothing things that are. And I really think sometimes when there are incredible dark parasitic forces trying to really hone in on us, we don't have to have some complicated, some exhausting methodology to eradicate that. You know what I believe the answer is, Keith? It's obedience to the Spirit. It's some simple, maybe even silly little thing that the Spirit may have you. It may be playful, Keith. It may be childlike, like beating a drum, sitting in the grass barefoot. And
what else would the Spirit want to do other than be childlike, sitting in the grass, beating on a drum, or just sitting on a bench eating an ice cream cone? I've often said, if you want to see God, find a child eating an ice cream cone or playing with a lizard.
Exactly. That's good, Keith. Except you become as little children, you will not enter into the kingdom. And I don't think that's some futuristic thing. I think it's right now. In other words, the entrance to that domain within our soul and heart at this very moment is by childlike qualities. And, even the ancient Essenes had something to say about the archons and their battles against humanity, and that our retaining childlike innocence would be our greatest weapon against that. Isn't that exciting, Keith? That just being like children, who's afraid of the big bad wolf? I mean,
yes.
I love it. I love it. It's not arrogance. It's just knowing that this is one of our greatest tools. And that's why I think laughter is such an empowerment, and being around people that are funny. Who was the comedian? His dad told him as a child, you can have anybody over to spend the night that you want. I just have one rule: they have to be funny. Laughter, it heals. A merry heart, the proverb says, does good like a medicine. It's so great just to chuckle. So good to laugh at ourselves, at our stupidity, at our pride.
Today is the Dalai Lama's 80th birthday. Happy birthday, Dalai Lama. And, what we're speaking about now, his book, The Art of Happiness. Happiness, there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path.
Keith, if you're looking for something to make you happy, you've already put happiness on hold. I was in this country home one time, and this woman had a little poster on her very humble refrigerator in her humble home, and it said, if you're not happy right now, you're missing a good opportunity. And I think it's the laws that we learn from all the masters to be in this moment. I'm having a good time right now, Keith. I am enjoying our conversation. I'm learning things from you, with you, and hopefully sharing by Spirit with those who are listening. Keith, I want us all to get turned on, tuned in. I believe it was Alan Cohen says, people say, but what if what would the world be if everyone followed their bliss? Well, he said it would be a truly blissful world. So,
it's not rocket science.
Exactly.
It's not.
The world's not going to fall apart if you follow your bliss. The world's not going to, your family's not going to go down the tubes, and all your responsible labors. You're going to still be responsible. You're still going to be grounded. But I'll tell you what, if you're caring for others more than yourself, then you're not caring for the person you were sent here to heal. If you're caring for others more than you're caring for yourself, then you are not healing the person you were sent here to heal.
Absolutely, because you cannot write a check from your account to someone for $1,000 if you do not have $1,000 in your account. All your efforts to help someone when you're the one that needs the grace, it's for naught, because you're talking about you can still be responsible if you follow in your bliss. That is your responsibility. It is your primary priority, greatest responsibility. It's your obligation to expand into absolute bliss. And in so doing, not only do you fulfill the contract that you as an individual made with God, your higher self, the universe, the collective, whatever it is you want to call it, here on this planet as an individual, you are going above and beyond what is asked of you to do.
Wow. Keith, I got to tell you, you amaze me because I'm doing a little singer-songwriter stuff. And I got to tell you, man, when I really put my heart into 3 songs, I am sweating. I'm not perspiring, I'm sweating. Yeah. And I think of you guys, you get up there and you not only do 3 songs, you put 10 songs into a set and you take a little break and then you do another set and then another set. And then you got another night to come. Keith, hey, I've seen you tired, and I've seen you kind of laid back. And Keith, that is a principle to a key to empowerment is knowing when and how to rest. The sabbatical is not some legalized thing. Oh my God, no, but it's a principle of life. Your cell phone, I don't care how sweet a little cell phone package you got, you're going to have to plug that puppy in and you're going to have to charge that thing. And Keith, we cannot deny ourselves the restoration, the backing off. And I've seen times you'd be out and you wouldn't be as social. You wouldn't be as, because you had to go put your sole cell phone in the battery charger. You have to crank it back up. Yeah. And I know it, I don't know. I'm amazed, Keith, at how you can crank out so much energy, musically, socially, and in your other creative projects. I know that you know a lot about this subject.
Well, thank you, Steve, for the acknowledgement. The energy I have, even if you've seen the movie Do What You Love, the people who describe my personality, and the word that comes out is energy. I'm very vibrant. I don't stop. I don't know how. I just don't stop. I can eat all the food I want and never gain an ounce. Yeah. My metabolism is through the roof. I'm a very, very passionate person. When I sleep, I'm passionate. When I use the restroom, I'm passionate. When I go out, I'm passionate. When I work, I'm passionate. I don't know. I don't do this consciously. When I had my meeting with Swamiji Viswayogi last year, and God Realized Man, who gave me a personal interview, he was somewhat commenting on the certain things that would hint to the fact that I have so much energy that moves through me. Steve, just a bit ago, we were talking about embracing your power, people. We were also talking about exploring your power practices. I didn't know if you had another example of the power practices, but I think there's another bullet point here about it's experiencing your power predeterminations.
Yeah. Keith, I tell you, and another power practice, and I know everyone has different meditation modes, but I have a thing I call mirror magic. And you sit in front of a full-length mirror. And I love what Michael Beckwith says, look in your eyes, get to know the knower, get to observe the observer. Keep the divine observer within us is never moved by anything going on. It's not mad. It's not sad. It's just observing.
I think the only thing it really is patient.
Absolutely. And when you see that dude looking through your eyes, it's a blower. And Beckwith says, get to know who you were before your parents were born. And when you look at that ancient, wow, man, I'm getting blown away over here. Okay. When you look at that ancient divine soul that is wrapped in this earth suit, Keith, whoa, energy goes up, okay? You begin to get it. You're not just body. This body is, I love the passage in the book of Romans that says to be carnally minded is death, to be spiritually minded is life and peace. When you get to know your spirit, this energetic body, this astronaut, as we call it, this soul angel, this ancient knower that is inside of you, Keith, it is, whoa, that's mind-blowing. We've got this name, we've got this birth certificate, we've got this driver's license, and we think that that's who we are. Keith, that's not who we are. And we must spend some time getting...
Then who are we, Steve? Who are we? Who are we? All stuff aside, lay into it. I mean, describe it how you choose. Who are we at? What is our essence?
Well, that is a very tough question, Keith, because I do believe it's in flux, because we are in a process of uniting, with the one. However, I believe we are very ancient. I believe we have walked many times, many paths, many lives, and we are a very ancient soul, a unique expression of the divine with knowledge and powers that are unimaginable. And how I can fully define that being in person, I don't know. But Keith, and this will move us a little bit into the next, experiencing the power predeterminations.
All right.
And Keith, I believe this, to say it a little more simply, we have appointments with destiny. We have moments that have been very carefully orchestrated in our life where we are going to encounter the divine, but the divine in us, who we are.
Let me ask you this right here, Steve. You triggered something in me, and I'll interrupt, and I want you to continue where you left off. That was very key for me. There's been a lot. We all heard the question, do we create our life, or is there predestiny? Well, I think you may have hit on a very, very important piece of information right there, a very beautiful jewel, because what if there were key time, space, events in your life that happen, that might be what helps shape your decision making, like at the age of 5 or the age of 15, that these are absolutely going to happen. Now, however you meander and dance around all those is up to you, but these are guideposts. So please continue. I want to acknowledge that because it hit me as well. Something that alleviates some of my concerns and lack of clarity about.
I believe it's a good point. I'm glad you inserted that, Keith, because a very wise old gentleman once told me, he said, Steve, it's not always either or, but it's both and a whole lot more. And I think it's both free will and destined moments, and I think you're exactly right. I think there are some things that are just orchestrated. It's like a freight train coming through the living room. You're not going to miss it. But now how you respond to it and what you choose as a consequence of that is entirely up to you. Free will.
Beautiful.
So I do think there's both played. And then I think there's even more than that. So it's amazing. And Keith, I had one of those power predeterminations as a young man. And it was a point in my life where I was very frustrated. Well, we mentioned the childhood preacher. And yet, as this childhood preacher grew into puberty, the sweet little angelic preacher was waking up to a lot of things that didn't seem, it seemed contradictory with who I'd been prior to that. And in a very rigid religious setting, I was assuming a lot of guilt for things that were very natural. They're very natural, very healthy.
Welcome to the human condition.
I was being told that it wasn't natural or healthy, and I was not being encouraged to own and to manage those parts, of myself. And so I came to a point where I thought, forget it. And I took an extremely large amount of a substance that we know as LSD. And if you really tally it up, the window pane, that you would split 4 ways, it was about 40 hits I took that night. Okay? So you getting the picture? Well,
yeah. Wow.
You don't actually, now, people say, oh, well, you had a chemical brain experience. Hey, friend, you call it whatever you want. I won't argue with you, but I'll tell you one thing. I went through a kaleidoscope tunnel, and it spit me out in a world of love beyond anything I can explain. And I can't talk about it. I mean, and you know what's funny, Keith, when I did it, I was expecting damnation, condemnation, hellfire. Really, I remember laying on my pillow weeping and saying, I don't want to do this, but I don't see another choice for my life. And instead, I get into the divine embrace. And oh, Keith, the divine embrace when the love of the divine showers every cell of your being with unconditional, unjudging.
You know it when you're in that place. Trust me, like you said, there is no denying or overlooking the cradle of your divine grandparents' bosom.
Man, Keith, you know what? Keith, I don't encourage someone to try to duplicate that. I would not encourage that at all. This was my appointment. It was my moment of desperation. It's amazing that even the apparatus for all this was available to me at that time. And it just happened. And it was at that moment. And I've studied many of the out-of-body experiences of many people and the shamanic journeys and then the soul travel of people in hospital settings and in their own meditative experiences. And they call that the royal room, where you go and you're just embraced by the divine love, almost like it's just healing. And Keith, I can never be the same person after that.
It's impossible. It's impossible because you've been expanded beyond any barriers that would not let you out of the box. Same with me when I said, I use the analogy that it's like being cradled in the divine grandparents' bosom. That's how it felt for me when I was in India and Sai Baba blessed my Japamala. I saw myself looking at him. I saw myself as he, from his eyes perspective, looking down at me. And through this cyclical feedback loop, there was an metaphorical explosion inside of me, and I was expanded to glimpse the dawn of time. And when something like that to that magnitude happens, how can you be the same? Because all your belief system, everything that you have stood on, right, wrongs, goods, bads, holy, blasphemous, in, out, black, white, it all just gets shattered. It doesn't play by any rules.
I posted something recently, Keith, that said, when love becomes the way of your heart, hating someone just doesn't feel right. And hey, Keith, I've engaged in hatred since that experience, and I've had bitter feelings. But Keith, I can't stay there. There is just no way. I mean, that is as foreign to me as putting a fish on the land. There was a transformation, and I saw what was the true essence of divine. And the Christian masters taught us that God is love. God is love. You want a definition? God is love. And to have an experiential aspect of that, so that you don't believe it anymore, Keith. You know it. You know it. You become a Gnostic. You become a knower, and it is transformative, and it like you said very well, it just totally destroys the paradigms that previously existed. Now, it took me a while to catch up with that experience because I came back. I was conversational. I was even sort of bilocated while this was going on, and of course, I was rushed to a hospital and all the fun stuff they did to me there. But you know what? I had an appointment, Keith, on my calendar with the divine love. And you cannot walk away from that the same.
You see, I get that. I get that was the way, the tool, the expression that it took, or you chose, or a mixture of all that for you to have that divine appointment. And so, everything is perfect. You came out okay, even if you didn't, quote, come out. You're still okay. I mean, you went into this divine window and was able to touch your absolute self, your essence, to see that you are so beyond what you had known to that point. Steve, I've had those experiences, and it's like I've always said, belief can be an amazing catalyst to higher knowing. But if you stay in belief, it becomes stale. You become stale. You become frozen into something that you really don't know. And my soul is too precious, or at least my life is too precious to gamble with in that way, to exist right on a raft of just not knowing for sure. I'm one of those people who wants to dig. I want to find the bed of absolute knowing. I want to find the bed where I can plant my feet, and it feeds me and it expands me into greater senses of awareness. That's what I can't stop the machine.
You know, Keith, I feel like someone listening, you know, they may feel that they're not capable, worthy, advanced enough. Let me tell you something, dear friend listening. You know, this is not just about, it's not just about your capabilities and worthiness and all of that. It is a divine appointment, okay? And you have those. And if you really pay attention, you've already had some. You know, Keith, because I just do not believe there is any human excluded from these kind of confrontations. You know, we all behold as in a glass the glory of the divine, and we're changed into the same image from glory to glory. This is what the Christian master Paul said. And I think it's like a mirror, and you see reflections of the divine in those special moments. You know, I was telling you about Beckwith sharing about taking a tour group to Africa, and he wanted to visit a local shaman, and he apologizes to the tour group and says, "Oh, Michael, go ahead. We're fine. We're having a great time." And he goes and he sees this, takes quite a little trek out into the jungle, and he tells the people, you know, I really need to see this guy quick. I got to get back to the group. And they all start laughing, you know, they're just chuckling. And they said, Michael, who do you think brought you here? We brought you here. We knew you. And he's a little blown away, you know, by all that. And
yeah.
Then the old, I think the guy was 80-something years old, who actually had a father who was a shaman in another village who was something like 115 or something years old, you know. So we're talking about a family lineage of spiritual men. And he tells Michael, you know, you've got to come with me at night into the jungle, and you have an experience. And I call this a power predetermination. And Michael shares that in his book, and I heard him share it from the pulpit recently at Agape Live. And, you know, they march him out there in the night, and he says he's stumbling around, you know, and just thinking about all the little snakes and woolly critters. And a voice comes to him out of a tree. A tree begins to speak with Mr. Beckwith, the spirit in the tree, and begins to tell him about his calling and his work and what he is destined to do and things that will unfold. And of course, he is powerfully impacted. And Keith, this is what I want to say about power predeterminations. You know, you could meditate a million years. You could read every book. You could go to every conference. You could eat every herb. But you know, Keith, it really ain't just about us doing it. It's the divine doing it to, in, and at us. You know, it's when the divine says, okay, you've been walking at this level too long. We're fixing to turn it up, buddy. We're fixing to turn it up, lady. We're raising the vibration. And you know, Keith, I've even heard of people getting a humming in their ears, getting just like a jolt experience. Oh, yeah. and hearing strange kind of resonances in their eardrum. But anyway, Beckwith receives the word. He says after that, he couldn't see in the jungle prior to that. Now he can see, you know. And he said, I was wondering how these dudes were walking around in the dark. And it was a power predetermination. And this is what I'm talking about. We know the Master Jesus had his time of, and you know, Keith, I'll tell you this, and I want to say to those listening, a lot of times these will follow one of the lowest experiences in your life.
Yes,
When
yes.
you're ready to throw in the towel.
Yes.
You're ready to say, look, I've had it. This earth is creepy. This earth is weird. I don't want it. I don't even like playing here anymore. And Keith, the story has a happy ending if you keep the story moving to get there. And I believe there are plateaus, there are peaks where those power predeterminations come knocking on your door. And I'm excited because I don't believe we'd be talking about this, Keith, unless
we had a divine appointment.
We have I believe every one of us in this space, every one of us in this listening space, I believe, have a very soon forthcoming power predeterminations. Boy, Keith, I would love if they would tell us about them, wouldn't you? I would love if they would just email or call, because I really feel this is being unleashed right now. And
I got a quick story, Steve, for that, and it's power predetermination. Some weeks ago, I met this little kid. He showed up at one of my gigs. He was old enough to be in the bar. I was talking to him for a bit, and he was a black gentleman, and he wanted out of the projects. He was sincere. I said, "Are you serious?" He said, "Yeah, man, I can't stand it." I said, "I'd be more than, this is not about me. I'm telling you the story.
Right.
I'd be more than happy to help you, provided that, you're serious about it." And he did his work. He showed up. I gave him some books of mine. All that being said, he calls me yesterday. I was actually on stage, and one of my co-guitar players was playing a song. So I just felt that I needed to look at my phone, even though I'm on stage. So I looked at the phone, and it was him asking me for some money and some food. And I told him where I was, and he beat his feet for miles and walked to me. And I'd had no cash on me, and there was $5 put in a tip jar. And I asked my co-guitar player at the end of the gig, I said, "What do you want to do with this?" He said, "Keith, put that in your pocket." I said, "No, I'm going to give it to him." He said, "Even better." So I gave him the $5. We decided I'm going to take him to Midtown, where it was some sort of drop-off point. And as I'm talking to this young guy, explaining to him about alignment, how when you're in alignment, miracles begin to happen and things begin to manifest. And we had that dialogue. And I had no idea where we were going in Midtown to drop him off. And as I'm describing to him miracles in alignment, I just so happened to pull into a Walgreens so I could finish talking to him and find out where the exact drop-off point went. He goes, "I can't believe you just pulled into Walgreens." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Once you drop me off, I was going to walk here and use the $5 that I didn't know you was going to give me to buy the medicine I didn't have the money to get." So I said, "You see what just happened? Not only were you in an alignment, the alignment happened to you while I was talking to you about miracles and alignment." So I think that would be one of those power predeterminations. That was his appointment, as well as for me to get another spiritual bath of grace. But that was destined for him.
Keith, we shouldn't try too hard to orchestrate how our good will come. The universe will support and surprise us. And that's what you experienced. That's what the kid experienced. It sneaks up on you. I was out in the mountains one time and talking. It was a conference of dowsers, people that douse for water and precious minerals, and also for healing and therapy. And it was a great group of people. And I'm walking down the trail with one of the elderly ladies that had been teaching, and every time she'd get near me, I'd start weeping. I mean, she was a power predetermination in herself. And I said, "Martha, go away. I can't stand, every time you get near me, just stuff starts melting in me."
Steve, we're getting towards the top of the hour. I hate to cut you off.
Man, we could go all night.
Absolutely. There's no time that when you and I get together. We're going to make this a part 2. And I'm going to have you back on soon, because you and I really, really gel. And I feel there's a lot of energy that's released when you and I do our dance, brother. I love you. Is there a final thought you would like to leave us with?
Keith, going nowhere faster will not get you somewhere. Hey, I want to encourage everybody to run to Spirit like a mad dog. I mean, open your mouth wide and hunger and thirst, and blessed are those that hunger and thirst. They will be filled. And I promise you, if you let down that wall just a little bit and these earthly attachments and these have-tos and got-tos and listen to that want to, seek first that kingdom, and this other stuff will be added to you. And seek that, run after that like a deer runs after water, and you will be filled. And these kind of empowerments, this kind of strength, this kind of daily energy and daily enrichment is yours. It is your birthright. It is not something for an exclusive group. It is for you, and let's all take it. Let's run with it, Keith.
Steve, thank you for being here. Everyone, Mr. Steve Lancaster, dear friend of mine, and he is a power person. And for me, when I get the chance to mingle with him, he is a power predetermination for me. He is. That is no joke. Again, everyone, Steve Lancaster, Steve, my brother, thank you. Monday nights, folks. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Monday nights, Keith Anthony Blanchard. I am here as your guide for the Center of Light Radio. I'm the captain who steers the ship, but I like your involvement. Please feel free to call in to say hi. I love being in the chat room. I love asking the questions anytime they are able, and I was not able to get to one, but I'm going to make sure Profundity, that question gets answered. Monday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Center of Light Radio. Remember, when you lay down at night, you take those breaths and you reflect on your day. You might as well be doing something instead of nothing. Taste those breaths. Taste those breaths. Taste those breaths as if you were breathing and salivating for something grand in your life. Feel spirit move in and out. And as you begin to shift deeper within yourself, who you really are, you will discover lies just behind the breath. Ease into bliss. Peace, love, and light. Good evening.